Uber lost $8.51 billion in 2019 and $6.77 billion in 2020. It's clear that Uber is in serious trouble, but that's not the only case. Uber is facing a number of issues that might lead to its collapse within the next 5 years. Welcome to the Peak Performance channel, the place where you come to be inspired to create a more prosperous future. In just a few short years, Uber has become a household name. The ride-hailing app has changed the way we get around, making it easier than ever to hail a ride from the comfort of our own smartphones. However, not everyone is a fan of Uber. In fact, it's believed that the company won't exist in 5 years. So what's caused such a successful empire like Uber to fall apart? Well, let's take a look at the following reasons. The first reason may be seen in the Uber business model. Uber essentially acts as a middleman between drivers and passengers. As we all know, when a user inputs their location and destination into the app, a nearby driver can accept the trip. And once the trip is done, payment is handled through the app, so no cash is exchanged at any point. After the trip, both the drivers and passengers rate each other. Now, it seems like a great idea at first because it has completely revolutionised the taxi industry. Uber is a much more convenient way to get a taxi compared to all of the other options. With just the press of a few buttons, you can have one come right to you. Although this business model seems great at first, it's actually more troubling than it initially appears. Uber would like their drivers to be seen as independent contractors rather than employees. This means that technically, Uber doesn't have to pay any of its drivers a minimum wage. Furthermore, they are under no obligation to provide sick pay or other benefits. Not only does Uber not own any of the vehicles, but they also don't cover maintenance or fuel costs. They rely on the drivers to pay for everything. Uber doesn't have to pay their workers nearly as much compared to traditional taxi services, and this caused them a lot of legal problems. In fact, from the beginning, Uber's practices were illegal in San Francisco, where they originated. However, when Uber was originally founded, regulators weren't aware of its business practices yet. Because of this, Uber had a small window of time to monopolise the taxi industry and become so large that it would be difficult to stop them. Uber's business model was very clear in that they didn't have to pay their workers properly, but could still offer cheap services to customers. It wasn't uncommon for your first Uber trip to be free or for the company to give you referral bonuses if you managed to get your friends to try out the app. These marketing methods helped Uber increase its user base. This was possible because of the large number of angel investors who invested in the company. The app would become increasingly popular, becoming a central part of millions of people's lives. This would give Uber substantial bargaining power, and eventually it became apparent that things were perfect for Uber. They had become such a staple in society that it was much harder for a city to outlaw or regulate them. This aggressive and borderline illegal strategy led to unprecedented growth. However, the consequences of this growth soon caught up with Uber. This was because Uber's aggressive expansion had made it many enemies. The first is San Francisco's local government. After they started to take notice of how Uber was breaking regulations, they sent the company a cease and desist letter. This included possible penalties, such as $5,000 fines for every trip and a 3-month jail sentence for each day if they didn't comply with the request outlined in the letter. Now, most people would have thought this would have ruined the company, but Uber just kept going. They were so entrenched in San Francisco by this point that they had a tight grip on the transportation market. Uber released a press statement stating that they are the first to market with cutting-edge transportation technology. They went on to say that current city and state regulations haven't been written with these innovations in mind, but Uber is happy to help educate regulatory bodies on this new generation of technology. This early statement from Uber was symbolic. It summarised their entire business model. Uber completely rejected the law and had an almost pompous attitude, saying that they were happy to educate the San Francisco government. The second reason why Uber is failing is that they never gained a monopoly. When Uber was first established, it wasn't just revolutionary, it changed the game. That is, until a competitor decided to enter the market. And once that happened, Uber realised they needed to keep any and all competition at bay if they wanted their company to survive long term. And monopolising this kind of public transportation seemed like the best way to do so. This could be done through methods like negotiating with taxi companies or by offering better wages and service prices than any of their competition could afford. However, this wasn't the case. Uber's leadership was so focused on disrupting the taxi industry rather than securing their foothold in the market, and this ill-advised mindset allowed competitors to begin popping up. As a result, Uber started to lose its footing as the undisputed king of public transportation apps. The main competition came from Lyft, the second ride-sharing app. Uber's been the rival for a long time. Both are similar but with different reputations. Lyft portrays themselves as the underdog and a friendlier alternative compared to Uber. Lyft is working on reducing the anonymity between drivers and passengers. They're also making sure that trip statistics are as detailed as possible. In addition, they're focusing on implementing extra safety features for their drivers, such as Yeti background checks and mandatory anti-sexual assault training programs. But Lyft wasn't the only one. Soon there would be a bunch of apps all competing for Uber's market share, such as Bolt, who focused on the European, Latin American and Near East markets. The many companies now vying for a share of their ride-hailing market has disrupted what was supposed to be a monopoly for Uber. The third reason for Uber's downfall is due to their negative public image. Since its inception, Uber has been plagued by public image problems. The company's been accused of sexual harassment and discrimination, of stealing trade secrets and of flouting regulations. As a result, Uber has faced protests, boycotts and bans in various cities around the world. In 2017, Delete Uber trended on Twitter after it was revealed that the company had continued to operate in New York City during a taxi strike which was protesting President Trump's travel ban. And in 2019, Uber lost its London licence due to a lack of corporate responsibility. These scandals have taken a toll on Uber's business, leading to declining ridership and driver satisfaction. The fourth and final reason Uber is in deep trouble is that they aren't profitable enough. All the legal files they have to put out internationally continues to freeze their profit margins, which were either thin or non-existent to begin with. And the pandemic hit Uber hard as demand for ride-hailing services was falling sharply. Although the company has somewhat recovered in recent months, it certainly can't be called smooth sailing. According to recent reports, Uber managed to make a profit of around $50 million during the last quarter of 2021, and it seems that this newfound profitability is mostly due to the price hikes that Uber has been implementing into their app. They pledged to raise their fares, which only mean more money lost for Uber. Uber stock is at $30 a share, but a few years ago in early 2021 it was $60. And even though Uber's recent profits could be seen as a good sign, the company has yet to establish sustainable profit, and this is why investors are no longer confident in the company. Uber is in trouble and might not survive. This is because of all the controversy, violence and chaos that's been going on for over a decade. If they don't have a monopoly or mass deregulation, it's going to be hard for them to make it through this tough time. Thank you for being all ears throughout the entire video. To create is effort. To copy is genius. Albert Einstein. And if you want to expand your income by building an online income, then feel free to contact me so we'll get things moving right away. Remember, if you want to change your life, let's make a change together. You need to make a change.